Meeting of the Old Bridge Planning Board meeting to order. If you'd all please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting by publicly posting in the municipal complex, clearly giving the time, date, location, and agenda of this meeting, continuing such announcements to the Home Business Bureau and file the Stafford County of Mr. Pesky.
Present.
Mr. Lambert.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt.
Here.
Mr. Lane.
Here.
Mr. Marucci.
Here.
Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Luca.
Here.
Chairman Pettit.
Here.
Ms. Gary.
Present.
Ms. Sawant. Ms. Shapiro. Mr. Darby.
Present.
Mr. Remsen.
Here.
Ms. Drum. Here. Mr. Hart.
Here.
Okay, just want to remind everybody we're being televised and we'll be on camera until 10. When the cameras will go off, the meeting may still be in progress. So, okay, we have discussion item 36-17 PAF American Plaza 3.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'll start that, and maybe Rakesh wants to jump in. While engineering was going through the compliance review on this application, you'll remember this was the latest version of American Plaza, the Aldi supermarket and the Chick-fil-A, part of which is in Old Bridge, the Chick-fil-A, and the other portion is in Marlboro. So during the course of the application, they had indicated that Marlboro had already sought some changes, and the plans that this board was reviewing weren't the latest version. There was going to be some changes to the Aldi supermarket, they indicated, but they didn't think there was going to be a lot to the parking lot or the area near the Chick-fil-A.
Right.
So Rakesh did a review of this, and he sent a memo to American Plaza, myself, and to Dawn, noting that once they got the revised plans, there really were more changes. Do you want to go through what?
Yeah, certainly. As Ms. Carey said, towards the end of our meeting, when we approved American Plaza during the public session, is really when it came to light that the plan that we had been looking at, that we had reviewed and the board had been looking at all night, really wasn't the most current plan. Mr. Ida's attorney actually brought that fact to light, and that's when the applicant did say, "Oh well, you know, we did make some adjustments to the Aldi building, based off of Marlboro's comments," and at that time they'd sort of represented that the changes were mostly in Marlboro and they were minor in nature, and the board approved it, contingent on them, incorporating those revisions. So we did get the plan that was approved by Marlboro. And our letter, or our memo dated July 27th, just provides in sort of a bullet point format, the modifications or the deviations between the two plans. And the first 4 points are really the ones that kind of concern me. Typically, when we do a conformance review, there's always going to be minor revisions here and there, but there's a sort of a line, and we just wanted your input and Ms. Carey's input in that. Then they basically have to do with the parking, the availability of parking. You remember there was a parking variance for this because of the odd configuration. Only 10 of the parking spaces really wound up in Old Bridge, and our basis that we were using for the variance was that, well, it's just a small portion in Old Bridge, and there's a parking supply of about 55 parking spaces for the Chick-fil-A, even though our ordinance requires 171, which is a whole other story we'll have to talk about. That parking supply is actually 35 on the revised plans, as opposed to the 55 that was approved. And also, there's an outdoor seating component, which I'm having a hard time recalling whether that was discussed or not.
I reviewed the minutes. Not word for word, but I didn't see it.
Right. So there's an outdoor seating component that wasn't on the plan that this board approved. It's not that many. It's about 16 seats outdoors. Which is typical of restaurants like this, and also the drive-through lanes is a little different. They had 2 lanes for whatever reason in the pickup area, which I'm assuming it's for like a pull-off for folks who have to wait a little bit to get their food. There's a second like double width kind of lane there, and then the other is the orientation of the drive-through. So those are the 4 major points. The biggest point really being the parking and the outdoor seating. The total parking is actually reduced on the site from the 239 spaces that were presented to 224 spaces on the plan revised for Marlboro. The Aldi store is actually significantly bigger as well. The store that we looked at was 18,580 square feet, whereas the revised plans had it as a 22,978 square feet.
That's right.
I usually am. You're usually able to hear me. I don't have a problem talking, but now I'm going to talk even louder. So, when you account for the increase in retail space, if you use the Old Bridge standard for parking for the entire site, the required parking now is actually 324, whereas they've actually reduced it to 224. So, there is a bit of a difference, I guess, and then the question becomes: do we want to go through the exercise of having the applicant come back for a amended site plan? The variance, I don't believe, is affected because really there were only 10 spaces in Old Bridge, and they still have the same number of spaces in Old Bridge. So there's no change to the variance that was granted by this board. This plan is just quite a bit different, that's all.
And that's why, because there is sort of this gray area, because we granted variance for 10 parking spaces in Old Bridge, and that hasn't changed. But we did it with the understanding that there were 55 spaces sort of allotted to the property, to the Chick-fil-A, and now there's sort of 35 allotted to it. So it doesn't technically change the way the resolution's going to read. It's still going to say 10 parking spaces, but the support for it's a little different. So really, I thought the best thing to do is come to the board and see how comfortable or uncomfortable you are with the changes, and whether you want some additional testimony to make sure that you're still okay with the way the parking lot's laid out. Or, as we put in the conditions, because this is an unusual situation, that we gave the board's, professionals a little bit more leeway than they usually have to make these kind of changes and to review it, because we do rely on them usually anyway for these kind of things. So I'm really looking for guidance from the board. I can argue either way, that they really need to come because they're changing the variance, or that we can just leave the variance at 10 and it's fine. So I'd be guided by the board's feelings on whether or not you want to hear more on this.
Did you say that Marlboro approved it?
Yes,
So it's all approved, and they're waiting for us?
waiting for us.
Thank you.
Well, I personally think they should come back because I really don't like the way that this was approached in, not giving us some of the information and not all of the information, and then some of it was changed even after we gave them the benefit of the doubt and said, okay, And plus, that site is such a mess. And we've been dealing with this site, first it was a bank, and we went back and forth and back and forth. I mean, I don't want to, belabor, but I would like them to come back and give us on the record that all these changes. I mean, that's my feeling, but does anybody else have any comments?
I concur with what you just said. I think they should come back too. It's a big change.
Okay, so we're in agreement?
So it sounds like, let's say, a motion to require the applicant to come back regarding the parking variance changes and the site plan issues noted in the memo from environmental consultants dated July 27th, 2018. Might as well discuss all of them if they're coming.
Have a motion? Okay, moved by Mr. Marucci and seconded by Mr. Kate.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Marucci? Yes. Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Luca?
Yes.
Chairman O'Connor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for your
Okay.
guidance.
Okay, and we have the minutes for July 10th, 2018. We have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci? Yes. Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Luca?
Yes.
Chairman O'Connor?
Yes. Okay, application 11-18P, Woodhaven Village Phase 3. Amended preliminary and final site plan and major subdivision, residential and non-residential with C variances.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Ron Shemanowitz here on behalf of the applicant, Woodhaven Village, Inc. We are before you tonight with regard to what's known as Phase 3 of Section 2 of the Woodhaven Village development. And we're seeking several forms of relief. This is a section that was previously approved, so we are seeking amended preliminary and final site plan approval and amended preliminary and final subdivision approval. There are a couple of variances that you'll hear about, and there are a couple of design waivers. We have the several review letters, and we're prepared to address those. And we have our witnesses all ready to go, and unless there's any other housekeeping, I'd like to call my first witness, which is Bill Ife. And have Mr. Ife come forward.
Morning. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
State your name for the record.
William Ife, I-A-F, like Florida E.
Well, if you just give the board, I think everyone knows you, but just for the record, your position with the applicant and your history with the Woodhaven development.
I'm project manager with Woodhaven Village, in charge of development and approvals. I've been with them since 1991, and this is one of many applications that I've been here on Woodhaven.
Okay. If you could give the board a little description of what happened between Phase 4, which the board already approved, and Phase 3, which is in front of the board tonight.
All right, the initial Woodhaven Section 2 preliminary subdivision and site plan approval consisted of 7 phases. Phases 3 and 4 are the ones that we're amending. Phase 4 has an approval from this board from a meeting last May 1st. There were 164 units between the 2 phases in the original approval. Phase 4 had 116 units, consisting of a 52-unit age-restricted building, a 24-unit affordable building, 40 and 48 40 market apartments. That's 116 units. Phase 3 consisted of 48 multifamily apartments. The changes are we're taking 52 age-restricted units from Phase 4 into Phase 3, and the 24 units of affordable housing from Phase 4 into Phase 3. So that's 52 and 24 units coming into Phase 3. And then the 48 market units that were in Phase 3 are went into Phase 4. So Phase 4 had 52 age-restricted units, they go into Phase 3. 24 affordable units, they go into Phase 3, which leaves 40 market units, which are staying in Phase 4. And we're taking the 48 market units that were in Phase 3 and putting them in Phase 4. And at the end of that accounting, you end up with 88 multifamily units in Phase 4 and 76 units in Phase 3. In addition, we're requesting to take 18 units from Section 3. Section 3 has some serious wetland constraints in it, and we're trying to loosen that section up to put some better product in it. So we're requesting to move 18 units from Section 3 into Section 2, Phase 3. So that 76 units plus 18 is 94 units, and that's what's before you tonight. So Section 2, Phase 3, this evening's application is 52 age-restricted units, 24 affordable units, and 18 townhouses. And Section 3 goes down by 18 units. The GDP totals do not change. We're not asking to change them. Section 3 is planned for 380 units. Removing 18 units brings it down to 362. So the Woodhaven GDP totals stay the same. We're just moving some units around. And the reason we're moving the units around is after all this time and with the market today, we're trying to do some better planning. And that is the exhibit that you see up on the screen, which, if my eyesight serves me correctly, says Woodhaven Village, Phase 1 and 2, Phase 3 and 4, excuse me, Block 22 2001, lot 2.13? Phase 1, oh.
Or the packet that was presented, or are these exhibits?
So that's just an exhibit. That's an exhibit. And that's the wrong exhibit, actually. We should put one up with phase 4 on it. I'm sorry. No. There we go. That's the one. And that is Woodhaven Village Phases 3 and 4. And you can see up at the top right is Phase 3, and the bottom left is Phase 4, and those are in the brighter colors. The existing context is the photograph. That's an aerial photograph that we made this exhibit on.
First exhibit shown, Bill, that we started to mark A1, so there's no misunderstanding.
Make this
Yeah.
A1.
I think that makes more
Make
sense.
this as
Okay.
A1.
So this exhibit that you're referring to now, which we're calling Exhibit A1, you could just identify that exhibit for the record.
It is Woodhaven Village Phase 3 and 4, overall plan exhibit,
Okay.
dated
great.
8/7/18.
Thank you.
In the bottom left, you'll see Phase 4, which is approved, and that's the 88 multifamily units. And up again at the top right, in the top center, in the brighter colors, are the proposed elements of Phase 3. And there's one more element of Phase 3, which is the recreation component of Woodhaven Section 2, which consists of a clubhouse, a pool, 2 basketball courts, a playground, and a large sitting area, veranda area with chairs and tables for enjoying the outdoors.
Bill, while you're up here, just a little housekeeping. We've been through these on many applications, the design waivers. If you could just run through the design waivers being requested and the justifications for them.
The design waivers, not variances, design waivers, we've been through these before. The first one is minimum parking space size. The residential site improvement standards, the state regulations have been on the books for years, and the parking space size is 9 by 18 feet. The ordinance still requires 10 by 20 feet, so we need to request a design waiver from the ordinance's 10 by 20 feet to use the RSIS, Residential Site Improvement Standard, 9 by 18 feet. Also, the ordinance has requirements and prohibitions against disturbance of wetland buffers and sensitive slopes. We have an amended administrative consent order with the DEP that determines where we can and cannot develop inside of wetland buffers and wetlands. It acts as kind of a wetland permit, although it is not a wetland permit, it's something else. And the areas that we're operating in are technically covered by the critical and sensitive areas of the ordinance, so we need to ask for a design waiver for that. That item, we've done this before. And I believe that's it for the critical and sensitive areas and the parking space size.
I have nothing further of Mr. Reif unless the board has questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Rice? Yes, Mr. Piscitty.
Are these units for sale or for rent?
These are for rent,
All of them?
all of them.
Thank you.
So is the affordable housing going to be scattered amongst the townhouses as well as the,
The affordable housing is proposed in a single 24-unit building. That is the way it was approved under the Section 2 preliminary approval. It was approved that way in conformance with the ordinance, with the Old Bridge Township ordinance, and all the COA rules and everything else at the time. The requirements for spreading things around talk about access to transportation, access to amenities, access to transportation amenities, access to services. The buildings, the affordable units are enmeshed in the context of the market unit development. Some of the buildings are closer to the recreation area than others. This particular building now, this is the third of This is the third of 3 affordable buildings. 2 of them are built already. Has the same quality of construction, the same quality of materials. The units themselves are a little bit smaller. They're not as big. We're making our market units bigger to compete in the marketplace, so we can get the tenants before somebody else does. Those units are as well located as any. The building we have this evening is got open space on one side. It has parking adjacent, and you can walk to the recreation area. There are market units that don't have access that good. The requirements also are for the affordable units, you have to have 1-bedroom units. The multifamily buildings, the market multifamily buildings are 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. There are no 1-bedroom units in the market buildings. But we're required to have 1-bedroom units in the affordable units. So architecturally, it's different. But the buildings, there are 2 of them out there now, and unless you really tried to find them, I don't think you really could. We have renderings of the affordable building tonight, and the only difference is that the units themselves, the apartments inside, are a little bit smaller, but they have the same access, they have the same everything as anybody else.
We do have our architect here tonight, but Bill, just a quick comment. I believe the architecture on the affordables has been changed a little bit. Is that correct?
The architecture on at the Phase 4 hearing, the board discovered that the architect had left some things out of the affordable building. The ones that we built in Phase 1, for some reason, he left off some of the features that we had in those on the Phase 3 building. Those things have been added back in. We have dormers on the building to match the other buildings, and we have balconies, and we have porches, and we have beautiful glass facades at the entranceways to the building. But they're not scattered throughout through all the buildings.
Like one whole building is affordable units.
The building has 24 affordable units in it, yes.
So, going back to Ms. Piscatty's question again, are all the units rentals, or the townhomes included in that?
Everything, yeah, the townhomes are also rentals.
The townhomes are rentals, even though they're on
Townhomes are
the
also
individual lots? Okay.
They do that for financing, I don't.
I've never seen that. I've seen rental townhomes, but they're usually on one lot, but,
They don't have to be on
No.
individual lots, we just,
But there, affordable units
Yeah,
can have
it
2
is
bedrooms.
unusual.
the affordables have 2, oh yeah, there are 1, 2, and 3-bedroom affordable
Oh,
units.
they
Oh,
are?
yes,
Well, you
yes.
said I
No,
thought you
there's
said
no
they
mar-
were only 1 bedroom.
No, the affordable units are 1s, 2s, and 3s, and there are state regulations that require so many of each kind. The market units, we don't have any 1-bedroom market units in this phase.
Don't have anyone.
No, the market units are 2s and 3s. The affordable units are 1s, 2s, and 3s. And they conform with the uniform housing affordability requirements. The age-restricted are 1s and 2s, 1-bedroom and 2 bedrooms, and some of the 2 bedrooms are double master, 2-bedroom units. The age-restricted building has got a common core to it with a whole lot of amenities. I can go through that really quickly now. The architect will can describe them probably a little better than I can. But on the first floor in the age-restricted building, if you look at the exhibit, the bar of the H in that one building in the center, up at the top, that contains 2 elevators. It's a 2-story building. It contains 2 elevators. The ground floor contains a multipurpose room with a kitchen, a gym, 2 lounges, a mail room, a parcel room for taking UPS packages. That's becoming more and more popular, and I don't mean to exclude the U.S. Postal Service, but you know what I mean, parcel deliveries. It has storage locker rooms. It has a men's and a ladies' room, public, a garbage room. The garbage will be collected inside, compacted and wheeled out by service personnel in the building. It has an office and a conference room, and that's only the ground floor. On the second floor, there's a theater room, a billiard room, a lounge, some additional storage lockers, a library, a yoga room, again, a men's and women's room for the public, and another garbage room for the second floor folks. And then 52 age-restricted units. The ordinance does not require age-restricted units. We were asked to put them in Section 2, and we did. So that's where they came from. And
And the recreational amenities are open to anybody living in them.
the recreational amenities come with residents in that building, so they're open to anyone who's in that building. You can't walk in off the street and use them, but you can, anybody in the building, all the tenants and the tenants' guests.
Are you referring to
Can
the
use them.
overall site amenities or those within the
I'm
age?
talking about the age-restricted
No,
building.
I'm talking about the pool and the,
Talking about the site amenities.
The site, the clubhouse, no, the clubhouse and the pool and the basketball courts, those are intended to be used by the tenants and the residents of Woodhaven, Section 2.
all the tenants, regardless of
All the,
which
ten- oh,
building
yeah,
they're
all the tenants, yes. It comes with, the pool and the clubhouse comes with your tenancy. There's no membership fee or anything.
All the residents, right, even the singles?
All the residents can use it, yes. Of course, the affordable units can use it. It's
But there's a
for-
fee?
It's for Woodhaven.
There's a charge for those amenities? Oh,
No.
okay. Okay, does anyone else from the board have any questions? Mr. Biscuiti?
I was really impressed with the age-restricted, I was looking at the plans. I think you did a really good job with it. It looks really nice.
Thank
Do you know around approximately what the cost would be to live in that building for rent,
I
about
do not. I'm on-
range?
Actually, I have no idea. I'm on the front end of all of this.
Oh, okay.
It's regulated by the state regulations, and there's actually people who make a living out of setting those prices and qualifying. But it could be that if you have other rentals in town, I don't know if you do, affordable rentals, it should be, pardon me? Are you
He's
talking
talking
about
about the
age
age
Yeah, the
restriction?
age
restricted.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the
No,
affordables,
no,
I'm
no.
sorry.
No, age-restricted.
We have,
I apologize.
for age-restricted, we have this building, and we also have our Texas Road Plaza 3, which has 250 age-restricted units. So if the board would approve this, we'd have 302 age-restricted units. The age-restricted market, I don't know how deep it is, but we need to get folks in here. I can come back to the board and let you know.
I'm just curious.
Honestly, I don't know.
Anyone else have any questions of this witness?
Madam Chairwoman, Bill, if you could just describe the comparison of the age restricted in the other section, that was more constrained, and this one is less constrained. The footprint is wider, right? This
Right.
site plan layout is less condensed.
The history of this is, the last time we were here, we mistakenly used the same building that we used over on Texas Road Plaza. It was a 4-story elevator service building. And over on Texas Road Plaza, it did not have the same zoning as this. But it's far more constrained with wetlands than this site is. This site, fortunately, we're kind of at the top of a hill here in Woodhaven Section 2, so we've got some more room, so we were able to do a 2-story building. The height limit under the ordinance is 30 feet. So a greater than 2-story building would require a height variance, and a 4-story building would require a height variance that would have to be from the zoning board. So we decided to use the area that we had, and there's a little bit less green space, but the building conforms, and we did not have the same constraint we have over at Texas Road Plaza 3, which some people might remember as OC7 on the Woodhaven GDP.
Do you have
No
any
other
more
questions.
Do you have anything?
Is Mr. Gill going to be testifying regarding some of the technical stuff that we had? So,
They're Oman, but the same firm.
I'm sorry.
Same firm.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
The answer is yes.
yes, I'll withhold our comment until their engineer testifies.
All right.
Our next witness is Greg Omar, our site engineer.
Thank you.
Get you sworn in. You swear affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
And state and spell your name for the record, please.
Sure. Gregory Oman, O-M-A-N.
Greg, your qualifications for the board, please.
Certainly. I am the president and owner of Menlo Engineering Associates. Have been with Menlo Engineering for a little over 20 years now, licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey for a little over 16 years, also a professional engineer in the state of Pennsylvania. I've testified in front of numerous boards, but in my 20 years of working, I've never been in front of this board before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, before you get rolling on your testimony, during Mr. Ife's testimony, we marked A1. Is that what you're going to be utilizing? I also see a regular old non-electronic board. If we need to mark something, let's mark that before you get rolling.
I would like to see if this was in one of the submission PDFs.
From the engineering set?
That
or
would have been,
from-
as a
or-
rendering, that would have been submitted, not part of the, that was not.
Okay, so let's. It's on the CD? Let's mark
This
the
exhibit isn't
paper
being-
copy.
Won't be used for that long.
Yeah, this is Exhibit A2. Yeah. What is the title and date and prepare?
The date of this exhibit is called Phase 3 Overall Exhibit with today's date. Do I need a microphone or?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
This exhibit basically just gives anyone who doesn't know where this particular site is, the location with some of the surrounding areas. Starting at the northeast corner, north is pointing straight up, is the signalized intersection of Texas Road and Woodhaven Boulevard. Phase 3 is a 95-acre parcel identified on the township tax map as Block 22001, Lot 2.13. This is Phase 3, and it encompasses this entire exhibit. It's bound by Woodhaven Boulevard to the east and to the south, McLean Street to the west, and Texas Road to the north. The portion of Phase 3 that we're going to be focusing on for the site plan application of this is basically centrally located within Phase 3. It's comprised of approximately 12 of the 95 acres. The location of this is directly across the street from Phase 1 and Bell Avenue to help give you a little bit of location along Woodhaven Boulevard. If we can now go to, do you have this one? Since I haven't been here before, do you prefer me to testify to that, or is it easier just to use a laser pointer on the screen?
Screen is fine.
Screen's fine? Okay. Just make sure my laser pointer works. It does. So this will be marked as
A3.
A3. And this,
Tell us what that is.
sure, this is entitled Overall Plan Exhibit with today's date. It's a colored exhibit overlaid on top of an aerial photo showing some of the surrounding areas. As you can see, most of it is wooded areas along the north and western sides of this particular portion of the phase. I'll start from left to right or west to east with some of the amenities that we are proposing in this particular phase, starting with a one-story, 7,350 square foot clubhouse. Some of the amenities that are attached to this are the pool to the west, tot lot to the southwest, and 2 basketball courts. Access to this is located off of 2 full movement driveways off of Woodhaven Boulevard. Between the building and Woodhaven Boulevard is the parking lot, which houses 79 parking stalls. Those parking stalls are 9 feet in width by 18 feet in depth, with a 24-foot drive aisle that meets RSIS requirements. Just to the north of the building is the dumpster enclosure within easy walking distance for any of the employees of the clubhouse that need to get rid of the garbage. Moving to the east and to the next sector of this particular phase is a 2-story H-shaped building, which contains 52 age-restricted units. Circulation is permitted on all 4 sides of the building. Starting on the southern side, there's a grand entrance that allows vehicles to come in, circulate around the circular island, and back out. Parking stalls provided on all 4 sides, with a total of 128 stalls provided for the age-restricted building. Again, 9 feet in width by 18 feet in depth. Along the west, east, and southern sides, the drive aisles are 24 feet in width. Along the northern side, we have increased that drive aisle to 30 feet in width which will aid in some drop-off area. We anticipate there to be maybe some loading that gets done for pickup for mail and garbage. Finally, continuing to the eastern third portion of this phase, teeing off of Crystal Place is a public right-of-way, intersection of Woodhaven Boulevard and Crystal Place. To the east of Crystal Place is the two-story, identified as Building 19.1, that contains the 24 affordable units. Parking is located just to the north of this building, where we're proposing 51 parking stalls, 9 feet in width by 18 feet in depth again, with a dumpster enclosure located on the eastern end of the parking field. Continuing up Crystal Place to the cul-de-sac are the last 3 buildings in which are being proposed as part of this application. Buildings 20.1, 20.2, and 20.3. We're proposing 18 3-bedroom units. Building 20.1 has 6 units. Building 20.2 contains 4 units, with 20.3, which is the northeast building, containing 8 units. Each of these units will have a 1-car garage, 1-car driveway, and just to the southeast of these buildings, we located an additional 10 parking stalls that can be utilized either by somebody who lives there or guest parking. Moving on to how the stormwater management collection system was designed for this particular project is a very conventional system. It's an underground collection system that conveys all runoff from roofs, pervious and impervious areas through an underground network system and utilizing just inlets. There are no basins being proposed for this particular phase. A portion of the site is conveyed through an underground system to an existing stub that eventually discharges down Woodhaven Boulevard down to basin number 5, which is further down Woodhaven Boulevard closer to Texas Road. The remaining drainage, again, is collected through a series of inlets and underground piping and is discharged down into basin number 3, which is located in phase 4, which was previously approved. That basin discharges out to Barkley Brook. All drainage analysis for phase 3 and 4, which discharges out to Barkley Brook, meets all township, county, and state requirements for drainage. In terms of utilities, all the utilities that need to service this particular phase are already located within Woodhaven Boulevard, and some of them even stubbed into the property. Starting with water, there's an existing stub out at Woodhaven Boulevard and Crystal Place. An 8-inch line is going to be extended up Crystal Place to service not only the 3 townhome buildings, the affordable building on the east. It's going to then loop around the age-restricted building, servicing that building, and eventually coming down alongside the eastern side of the clubhouse to service the needs for the clubhouse. We have positioned hydrants along that line, off that line, for fire protection needs, clearly under the jurisdiction of the township fire official in terms of the number of fire hydrants and locations. Sewer service, there is an existing sanitary gravity line, 12-inch, that runs along Woodhaven Boulevard. There are 2 stubs, 8-inch stubs, which come off of that line, which are going to service this development. The first being just to the eastern side of Crystal Place, the building 18.1, building 19.1, and the 3 townhome buildings, all are going to run with an 8-inch gravity line down into that stub. The clubhouse then ties into an existing stub that's located in the driveway just to the east of that building. Again, this is all conveyed down a 12-inch gravity line to the southwest down Woodhaven Boulevard. Telephone, electric, and gas are all located within Woodhaven Boulevard and have capacity to provide service to each of these buildings. The lighting design as submitted in the plans in front of you basically follow what previous phases were done within this development. We're proposing a total of 58 decorative post-top light fixtures, 80-watt LED fixtures mounted at a height of 14 feet. We meet the 0.2-foot candle requirements for all paved areas within the Phase 3 development. The lighting design as submitted allows safe light levels for all vehicular and pedestrian circulation throughout the development. It's a little hard to see from this distance, but according to the plans, you'll see not only is there great circulation around all these buildings, but there's pedestrian access basically around every single building out to Woodhaven Boulevard and in between each of the phases. So it is very easily to get from one area of the section of Phase 3 to another section. Going hand in hand with the lighting is the landscaping design which was proposed, including street trees along Woodhaven Boulevard, comprised of mostly oaks and red maples. We've added some evergreen plantings along the tree line in the northern side of the property, consisting of some Norway spruces and Douglas firs, some additional plantings around each of the dumpster enclosures to kind of jazz up that area, and the grand entrance to the age-restricted building. In total, we are proposing 448 trees, 384 shrubs, and 79 ground cover, which is like fountain grasses and black-eyed Susans to add a little color. The last exhibit, which I don't believe was submitted, it is actually part of the application set, which is the final major subdivision plat. I don't believe we need to, you want to mark this, even though it was submitted? Okay.
Exhibit A4, and you can
Certainly.
identify it, just in case.
Plan title is Final Major Subdivision Plat dated July 12th, 2018. Again, this is a 95-acre lot, which is being subdivided into 24 lots. Those lots are made up by the 18 townhomes. Each townhome unit will have its own lot. The affordable unit lot to the southeast end of that. Moving to the west, we have Lot 4, which is the age-restricted building, which will be on its own lot. Continuing to the southwest along Woodhaven Boulevard, we have Lot 3, which is for the clubhouse. That leaves 3 remaining lots to make up the 95 acres. Lot 5, which is basically just right in the middle of where the age-restricted building is, kind of comes around the townhomes and extends out to Woodhaven Boulevard and Texas Road. That lot, which is made up of just over 22 acres, is going to be dedicated open space. The northwest lot, which is identified as Lot 2 on the proposed plan, which has frontage along McLean and Texas Road, is going to be utilized for future development. And the last lot, which is the southwest lot, again having frontage on McLean Street and Woodhaven Boulevard, identified as Lot 1 with just over 27 acres, again is being dedicated as open space.
Greg, I'd like to turn your attention now to the review letter issued by Environmental Resolutions dated July 31st, 2018. Have you had a chance to review that document?
Yes, I have.
And could you comment on that in terms of whether the applicant will comply, or are there any items that we need to talk about?
For the most part, I think we can comply with just about all the comments. I will go right to page 5. There was a comment of the left turn lane into Crystal Place by the engineer. We have examined that. Maybe we can, if we can go back to the previous exhibit on the screen. Perfect, thank you.
Greg, what number on page 5?
I'm sorry, item 20
Item
on page
20.
5.
Thank you.
The left turn lane into Crystal, off of Woodhaven Boulevard to Crystal Place, extended slightly into the intersection. This existing stripe island, we can modify that to pull that left turn lane back, still provide stacking to allow the left onto Bell and the left onto Crystal Place.
I'm having a hard time seeing how that's going to happen. The distance between Crystal and Bell really doesn't give you much room to have 2 left turn lane, left turns into each road. That's really the biggest concern we have. I mean, our review letter, most of our comments, I think, are you'll be able to address, but that's the most significant. The access points onto Woodhaven, the Crystal Place, and then the main that access into the age restricted are really the 2 biggest concerns that we have in our letter. I'll let Ms. Drum speak to it as well, but given the length you have there, it's really going to be difficult to get 2 left turn lanes, one for Bell and one for Crystal in that little spot. What's the distance from the edge of Bell to the edge of Crystal? Because really your left turn can't extend into the opening for Crystal at all.
Center to center of intersections, you're about,
No, edge to edge, because like I said, the lane can't extend into the opening at all. Just like if you look at Bell, your left turn lane for Bell doesn't extend into it.
so for the eastern edge of Bell to the western edge of Crystal, you're looking at about 115 feet.
Yeah, that's not going to be enough to get a transition taper and actually have any stacking for opposing left turn lanes. That's really our biggest concern.
Look at it further, and also, we can have our traffic engineer study it.
Yes, yes. If that's the case, we will have to eliminate the left turn lane in there. There are two public right-of-ways that exist today, but if that stacking in this location is just not enough,
Yeah.
we're going to have to eliminate the left in here. Going back to your other point, which I wanted to make as part of my testimony and I didn't add into it, we have agreed with both you and the planner that we are going to eliminate this access point and landscape that in to avoid, again, some additional movements turning in there for any confusion and potential accidents.
So you're going to eliminate the left turn lane onto Crystal?
Onto Crystal, which basically is then forcing people to make a left onto this drive aisle if you're heading south to north and funnel through there.
I'm not sure that's functionally. I'm not sure how that's going to work for you guys. Because the concern really is that people are going to make lefts, regardless of whether you have that lane or not. Between the two. It could be, I'm sorry, I'll let you offer up whatever you guys are offering up.
No, I mean, us looking at, we did look at this when we received your review letter, and we sketched it up, rather quickly during our pre-meeting discussions. Our feeling was that we could get enough room in there. Potentially, we'll have the traffic engineer review that, see if there's enough stacking, if we feel there's enough stacking for both Bell and Crystal. Because again, if you're this will be eliminated. We all agree that that's going to be eliminated. It makes sense.
That'll help if you eliminate that. But the other thing that we were just talking about is you probably could do like a textured asphalt area in the center, like for basically opposing left turn lanes, and really slow people down as they go through that area. Whether again, this is something you're going to have to come up with rather than us designing on the fly.
Yeah.
But something to slow people down as they come through there, and get some contrast and pavement to allow people to make those turns, because they're going to make the turn. So we have to account for that. To eliminate it isn't going to work, I don't think, because folks coming north on Woodhaven are going to make that left turn into Crystal. They're not going to.
No, you don't want to have them circulating.
They're they're not likely to take that left turn there and then cut across the age restricted.
they're gonna come
come
in.
up to
Right.
Crystal.
Certainly will. I agree.
Yeah.
And make the illegal left turn then if you prohibit it. So why,
I would ask that our office will work with the board's professionals on coming to a solution to this. I think we can come up with either a little shift of the road somehow that allow that left turn in, because it is important left.
It's going to be a combination of eliminating that access, some traffic calming on Woodhaven. And maybe some realignment on Crystal if it's possible to get a little bit more separation. Because even the separation from Bell, I'm not a big fan of the separation between Crystal and Bell to begin with.
right.
Okay. We'll work with your professionals on that.
Other items in the environmental resolution?
Sure. Item 22, we just discussed, we are going to close off that access road directly across from Bell that lines up with the center courtyard of the age-restricted building. Moving down to item 30, where the recommendation is to make the head-on-head parking 20 feet in depth. We would prefer to stay with the 9x18. It's RSI standards. It's done in New Jersey across in most retail developments. 9x18 seems to work for head-on-head parking. Item number 39 on page 6, in terms of adding a raised crosswalk right in front of the clubhouse. We don't like raised crosswalks. It affects drainage, It affects how the water drain is directly in front of the main entrance. What we prefer to do in this location, we agreed to do the textured crosswalks in these areas, like a stamped asphalt, but we would also prefer in this location to maybe have a stop condition. It'll help provide some traffic calming, because this is probably where it's going to happen the most with the main entrance there.
I think textured, and maybe do something with some maybe a landscaped island or something, just to sort of squeeze things down.
Make people feel a little
To make
tighter.
people feel a little bit tighter in, so you can slow them down. Probably not a stop condition, because on a straightaway, it's not really preferred. I mean, the reason why we want something is because it's such a long straightaway,
Mm-hmm.
people sort of tend to race from one end to the other. So really, the textured asphalt and maybe sort of squeeze things in a little bit to slow people down is probably what we're looking at.
Sure, we could do that. Let's see.
Bump out or something like that.
I believe all other items within the letter. Let's go to page 9, item 62. The recommendation of making the dumpster enclosures masonry. We're staying consistent with the other phases that have been approved and constructed in this development. Board-on-board fence for both the clubhouse location and just to the north of the building 19.1. We'd like to stay with the board-on-board fence. And I believe the last one is comment 22 on page 10 regarding having the specific pavement markings for the age-restricted building. I prefer to keep that as is. RSIS has, as part of their parking requirement, it includes a fluff for guest parking. Therefore, to have those areas designated just for people who live there doesn't really make sense. This parking area is sufficient for not only the people who live in this building, but also for their guests. And that is it for that particular.
Other than those items you called out, the applicant will comply with everything else in the environmental resolutions letter, is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, just for my notes, can you go back one, the one about the fence, what number was that on what page?
Last comment?
Yeah, about the fence.
The last comment was really, I guess, number 22 on page 10.
Correct.
That was really a requirement from the preliminary approval for the age-restricted development to sort of differentiate those spaces. So,
Okay.
I know we're amending preliminary, but
That's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, we will do item 22.
the trash enclosure, our ordinance doesn't really require it to be masonry. It was a recommendation. It's a common theme in all of our review letters to make these match the buildings. It's something that we can't compel the applicant to do it. It's something that we request. Certainly, the configuration of the trash enclosures to provide a person gate is something that we prefer, because a lot of times these things wind up, flying open and folks have to keep
Sure.
opening them and closing them.
We'll agree to that.
Greg, lastly, have you had a chance to review the,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Last thing, same thing with the parking spaces. We do obviously recognize that the RSIS requirement is 9 by 18. It was really more just for, again, when you have head-on parking. I don't have a problem with the parking spaces when they're, head-on into landscape areas or sidewalk to have them 18 feet deep. When they're head-to-head parking spaces, that additional 2 feet is something we'd prefer to have. But again, if you can try to do that, we'd appreciate it. I know your site's a little constrained.
We'll see where we can do that, certainly.
Greg, did you have an opportunity to review Fire Marshal Hart's letter of August 1st, 2018, which incorporates a prior review letter of April 20th, 2018?
Yes, I have.
And could you tell us the applicant's position on Mr. Hart's comments?
Yes, our project manager, Robert Gill, met with Mr. Hart this morning to discuss some of these items, and we can certainly work out any comments or issues that he may have with the plan. The one that I would like to bring up to the board's attention is that we are going to basically, from the beginning of building 20.1 along Crystal Place, we are going to label this as no parking along this entire portion of that roadway. And we're going to permit parking basically from this driveway that accesses out to the age-restricted building up to that building, which we could probably get about 7 to 8 parking stalls. We are going to stripe them as parallel parking along that roadway. So it's some additional parking that can be used. By RSIS requirements, it's not needed, but it would certainly aid in the help of keeping any kind of residential parking on the street up there that would basically interfere with any kind of emergency vehicle access if needed.
All other items in Mr. Hart's letter are acceptable? Is that
Correct, yes.
I have nothing further of Mr. Oman.
Forgot the planner's report.
I'm sorry.
You forgot the planner's
I know
report.
that there were
about the
engineering
planner?
items in the planner's report, but we can certainly look at those, absolutely.
And there's
How-
landscape architecture comments in the planner's report.
Yeah,
Oh.
we're fine.
Simple answer to the planner's report, which is a second review dated July 20th, 2018, is all will comply. So no issues with Mr. Rems's report.
Okay, very good.
That's probably why we didn't give it a lot of attention. We will comply.
Okay.
Now I have nothing further, Mr. Oman.
What about architecturals?
That's our next witness.
Oh,
As my next witness, I'd like to call our architect.
well, let me see if the board has
Other
any,
questions?
the board has any comments or questions on the testimony given?
I actually have several questions.
Sure.
If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
The first thing I was wondering, I was seeing in the environmental memo on page 7.42A, it was noted that there were some concerns regarding the rate of runoff, which will be addressed via testimony and supporting calculations. So
Sure.
I was just wondering if we will be hearing that testimony tonight?
Yeah, I can provide that testimony. As part of the Phase 4 approval, and our office has spoken to the board engineer, a portion of the Phase 3 drainage, which previously traveled down Woodhaven Boulevard out to Basin Number 5, is now being diverted to Basin Number 3, located within Phase 4. As part of the Phase 4 approval, that retention basin was sized accordingly to include this particular drainage area to it prior to discharging out to Barclay Brook. The discharge from the basins out to Barclay Brook, which is an internal stream away from all other residential properties, has been met in terms of township, county, and DEP requirements. The flow rates have been reduced and meet the requirements necessary.
I do recall you stating that. I just missed any, it was more directionality and then rather than the rate. The other thing that I wanted to ask is I seem to recall during the Phase 4 discussions, some talk about moving the site plan for this area around to have the recreation center in the middle due to accessibility. May I ask what happened to that?
I think I should answer that one. This is Bill Ife again. The original Phase 3 approval had the recreation area up where the townhouses are now. So the recreation area used to be up where the townhouses are. Now they've been pulled down to Woodhaven Boulevard across from Phase 1. So now they're much more accessible. You don't have to go up in the back to get to the recreation area. Now they're front and center on Woodhaven Boulevard.
So the intent was never to have them between the different buildings?
The original approval had the recreation area, and it was a clubhouse and courts, and I think a pool, and it was up. It was tucked in the back. It was tucked in the back.
Townhomes are
It was tucked in the back over there. So that was the original approval. We're amending that approval to put it on Woodhaven Boulevard now. So now it is kind of, now it's much more centrally located and accessible. It kind of belongs to everyone now, and not just the folks who lived along Crystal Place.
That's my mistake. When you said centrally located, I thought you meant literally centrally between the different.
Oh, no,
units.
it's central to Woodhaven, the larger Woodhaven,
Understood.
with all the phases.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay,
Next witness is our architect, Mr. Joe DeLucia.
Morning. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Just state and spell your name for the record, please. State and spell your name for the record, please.
Joseph DeLucia, DeLucia.
Thank you.
Joe, could you give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Been a registered architect for about 4 years now. I've been in CPL partnership for the better of 20 years. This is about the third board that I've testified with, obviously never in front of Old Bridge. I've done thousands of units across New Jersey in these types of buildings.
Thank you. Joe, what we'd like you to do tonight is to go through the architecture for the townhouse buildings, the affordable unit building, as well as the age-restricted building. And then we do have some quick testimony from our architect, Larry Appel, who designed the clubhouse, so you can see how that looks. So your job is to address those three, and I imagine you have some exhibits that you're going to use to do that.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll just do each product, and then we'll hold our questions until the end, right? What you see here is the age-restricted building.
Joe, we're going to have to mark that. That's Exhibit A5. So if you can just mark right on that board with today's date, Exhibit A5, and tell us what that is.
There you go. Exhibit A5 is rendered elevations of the age-restricted building of Woodhaven Village, Section 2. What you're seeing there on the top is a front rendered elevation. What you're seeing on the bottom is a side elevation, primary elevations of the building. Tell you a little bit about this building. This is a 52-unit apartment age-restricted building. It's 2 stories. It's a center hall type building. There's elevators, as Bill stated earlier. There's amenities on both the first and the second floor. Units ranging from 865 square feet for 1 bedroom, 1 bath to 1,225 square feet for one of the larger 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. This particular building overall matches the architectural character of the rest of Woodhaven, and the architectural detailing is also similar to the rest of Woodhaven Village Section 2.
Move on to your next exhibit, which would be A6. And tell us what A6 is.
Oh, sorry. The next exhibit is a typical rendered front elevation of one of the townhouse buildings. The townhouse buildings there's 3 separate building strings. There's a 4-unit townhouse building, a 6-unit townhouse building, and an 8-unit townhouse building. 18 total townhouse units. These townhouses have 2 floors. Total square footage of each unit is about 1,906 square feet. The townhouse units are all 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath units. Again, same architectural character as the rest of Woodhaven, similar detailing, cultured stone, nice facades, similar roof lines, etc.
It's going to be Exhibit A7, if you could tell us what that is.
Exhibit A7 is a typical front elevation rendered of the 24-unit affordable building. There's only one of these buildings. This is a 2-story building. Units range from a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit of 877 square feet to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath units of 1,181 feet. This building also contains the 1-bedroom, 1-bath units, which are approximately 665 square feet. This building has, it's this very much the same character, same architectural features as the rest of Woodhaven Village. It has a really nice glass entry, has the dormers, the little pieces of metal roof, exterior balconies, exterior terraces on the first floor. Again, everything is very similar to the rest of Woodhaven Village. You would be pressed to find that from the exterior, you would be able to tell this building apart from the market unit buildings. Same pedestrian vehicle access to all the shopping, the rest of the amenities Woodhaven has to offer. It's not tucked away into a corner. It's pretty accessible to all the features that Woodhaven has to offer. Same wooded views, same exterior materials, same architectural character as the market units. So we can just, if you guys want to just talk about each product individually.
Thank you, Joe. I have nothing further. If there's any questions of the board on architecture.
Anybody from the board have any comments or questions? Yes, Mr.
Are there any basements
No, there are no basements.
in all three, right? And
No.
how about access to attic storage? Any of them have attic storage, or it's just like dead space?
No, the attics will most likely be dead space. There will be access to it for, so you can get up there and service something, but those areas are usually locked, and the tenant will not be able to access the attic themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing further, Mr. DeLucia. Thank you, Joe. Our next witness and our last witness is...
Oh, can I just ask one thing?
I'm
You
sorry.
said all the units are smaller.
In the affordable
Are the
building,
layouts
yes.
similar to the market units?
Excuse me?
Are the layouts of
Oh,
the
yeah,
apartments?
absolutely. I mean, you'll just find that probably the bedrooms are a little smaller, and the combined living area and dining room is usually just a little smaller in the affordable units, not by much.
They have the same amenities as far as, appliances and,
Absolutely. Same kitchen layouts, just smaller. Same amount of
but I
bathrooms
mean,
have this.
dishwasher, refrigerator?
Yeah, bathrooms will have the same fixtures, et cetera.
All right, do you guys have anything?
I have nothing for the applicant's architect.
Okay.
Thank you, Joe. Now our next witness will be Larry Appel, our architect for the clubhouse.
It's on the PowerPoint or not?
We'll find out. Yes.
Because I have them here if that's helpful.
Okay,
If
we
not,
can tell Dawn. Do you have the architectural listed? On PowerPoint, do you have architectural listed? No? Get you sworn.
no, they're actually just two JPs. Actually two PDFs, I'm sorry.
Sworn in? Do you swear or affirm the testimony about giving this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And just state and spell your name for the record, please.
My name is Lawrence, Laurance, last name Appel, Appel.
Larry, if you could give the board the benefit of your qualifications.
Sure. I am principal of Appel Design Group Architects. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering and a Master's degree in Architecture. I'm licensed in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, as well as NCARB certified for most of the rest of the country. I have not appeared before this board, although I have appeared in almost every municipality surrounding you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Larry, we're up to Exhibit A8. If you can identify what exhibits you'll be utilizing, let's start with A8. And then you can provide your testimony on the clubhouse architecture.
So I have two exhibits here. One is the identical drawings that you have in your packages. These are the plans dated 5/1/18. There are two sheets. I don't think I need to mark those. They're unaltered.
No, if they're part of the plan set, that's fine.
And I have brought a front rendering, color rendering of the clubhouse, and this I would include as a new exhibit. You have a reduced version of this in your packages right now. And it's what's up on the screen is, your phone is A8.
A8, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So we are, my firm is the
architect for the clubhouse building. These have been designed to be conforming with the ordinance as well as the site plan that was testified earlier this evening. These have been designed to be compatible and complement the residential buildings and provide a community amenity. The clubhouse is 7,350 square feet. That's 5,619 square feet for the clubhouse portion, which includes a club room, leasing office with a kitchen and bathroom rental vignette. That's basically a mock-up showing sample finishes for the rental units, so it can be used as part of leasing, as well as a functional as an amenity for providing an active toilet room, as well as use as a pantry for guests of the clubhouse. Toilet rooms to service the building and pool, a covered patio at the rear, and an attached maintenance garage. This is access from the side of the building, and this is around the right side of the building.
You're referring to the plan set that was submitted, is that correct?
I'm on drawing PB-2.
Okay.
And the maintenance garage is on the right side. Along the entire side of the building, access from the side, so it does not take away from the active spaces of the building, and it does provide needed space for storage and staff facilities for site and building maintenance. The interior spaces will all have volumes, and this building is intended to service adjacent outdoor recreation areas. Included in these outdoor recreation areas are a pool, and one of the buildings that we have designed as part of the pool is the building here that's along the bottom of the page, and the building over here, it's called entitled Pool, Office, and Storage. We've taken a simple and necessary structure, which is for storage, the equipment for the pool, as well as a pool office. That would be first aid and resources for staff. And we have created a covered porch all the way around the building, so that we've decorated this and provided covered space around the building. So this outdoor covered porch takes a building that has only 450 square feet of actual space and creates 900 square feet of porch all the way around it. So we've taken and decorated this building, again, to provide an amenity for the pool. The other outdoor spaces that this building serves is not just the pool, but a tot lot and sports courts. So the building is designed, in addition to the interior spaces, which the two primary spaces are a large club room and an exercise room, there's also a covered patio to the rear of the building. So these spaces take a building that is 7,350 square feet and give it a little bit more presence as it engages the site and has both indoor and outdoor amenity space. Back to the rendering view. Again, we spoke that the building was designed to complement the surrounding architecture. The site engineer spoke about how this building is accessed. The parking area is in front of the building. There is accessible entrances into the building. The pool area can be entered through the building or alongside the building, so there's two ways to get to the outdoor pool area. We have used exterior materials, stone veneer, siding, architectural panels with raised trim, accent metal roofing, and windows and trim very similar to the residential components that are the rental units that are part of the project. The building height is less than 30 feet. Our drawings show the height measured to the ridge, whereas the ordinance permits measuring this to the midpoint. The building itself will have exterior lighting at the front and the rear by all of the entrances. These are designed, small architectural lighting. These are designed to highlight both the architecture as well as the entrances. These are light fixtures similar to what you would see on your homes. They're lanterns with small output bulbs. I don't think there's more to add about the building.
Thank you, Larry. No further questions of Mr.
Does
Appel?
staff have any comments? Board, questions? Yes, Mr. Lowen.
I'm just wondering what's going to be stored in the maintenance garage.
Typically, these are maintenance facilities that would be used when units are turned over. I'm not an operations guy, but typically we design these for extra appliances and window panels and things like this that are used either for maintenance, renovation, or when the spaces are turned over. They're not intended to store any hazardous materials or things like that. Typically, those type of materials would be stored within smaller enclosures. They have small enclosures for exempt amounts of materials that are permitted to be stored, but other than that, there would be no hazardous materials stored. Not to my knowledge.
Mr. Lowen.
This building, is there only access to the pool through the building?
No, I maybe did not mention clearly. You can access the pool either through the building. There's a central area, or alongside the building. My understanding is that there's a site entrance directly to the pool, so you can enter from either place.
Okay, and what about security? Can the people just walk in there, or do they have a swipe pass, or is there some combination lock on the door?
I can't talk specifically for every issue that is being programmed into this building, but from my experience with this developer on several similar structures, it's done through a fob or card. So there are access controls that provide hours of operation, that when residents can swipe in and swipe out to get into the building. And so the building is typically secured when it's outside of operating hours. And for instance, the pool will have separate hours, as well as seasonally when it's closed down. So the building, because of certain functions, will have normal hours, and then the residents will have electronic card control to get in and out.
So every resident will have to get a card?
Every resident that uses the facility would get a card, correct?
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Pink?
Is there an upstairs here, or are these windows just
Those are decorative. There will be mechanical spaces that are going to be up within the attic. The ceiling height does not go along the gutter line, but actually will step up and and the ceilings will tray into the attic space to utilize some of that volume.
Based upon the amount of people that will be using this is for all phase two, I guess. Does each phase have their own pool, or is this going to be the only pool for the whole development?
This is for section 2. Section 2.
How many parking spaces? I mean, you can't really tell here if there's a lot of parking.
I don't know, the site engineer can testify a little bit more on how parking is allocated. Our experience has been in communities that this is relatively close to a number of the residents that it serves, and that people tend to walk over to these type of facilities from prior experience.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Thank you, Larry.
Great, thank you.
I said Larry was our last witness, but actually I'm going to recall Mr. Ife. We have some very brief testimony regarding the variances that were called out. We need to cover that for the record. Bill, you acknowledge that you were previously sworn and continue to be under oath?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell us your qualifications as to planning issues?
I normally testify as project manager for Woodhaven Village. I am also a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey and a licensed engineer. And
We know him well.
I figured as much.
and my regular planner is actually on doing some good deeds out of the country, working in another place to help some underprivileged people. So he gets a pass from me for doing that.
So, Bill, I think there's 3 variances called out by Mr. Rems's letter in section 5 on page 3. We need to address those 3.
There are three variances. We'll start with A, which is the maximum number of units per multiplex building. The ordinance permits 24 units per building. The ordinance permits 24 units per building. We are proposing a 52-unit age-restricted building. The practical reason for that is that an age-restricted building should be elevator serviced, and it should have common facilities. And once you, as a practical matter, once you have public facilities and elevators, the building sizes, as a matter of economy and a matter of usability, get larger. So we have a 52-unit building. It is configured as kind of two 26-unit buildings with a crossbar with the common facilities. We've done this for practical reasons, and it also meets some of the requirements for a C2 variance, and it satisfies some of the purposes of zoning, which is to promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare in the state, which is purpose A. It also allows us to work under purpose E, which is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that contribute to the well-being of persons. It allows us to put in the age-restricted building a lot of common facilities. And it also fits under purpose L, which encourages senior citizen community housing construction. So I would say that those are the positive reasons for a grant of a C2 variance for the 52 units in the age-restricted building. And I don't see any negative effects from putting the 52 units in that building. There's plenty of light and air around the building and parking and circulation. The second variance I need to address is the maximum building length. Again, we're back at the age-restricted building, and because of the crossbar in it, it is from the top of the H on one side to the top of the H on the other, 260 feet long. The ordinance permits 240 feet. And again, for the same reasons, to provide the common facilities within the age-restricted building and the elevators, and to keep it at two stories in conformance with the height restrictions in the ordinance. Again, it fits the requirements for a C2 variance under Purpose A, encouraging appropriate use of development of lands. Purpose E, to promote an establishment of appropriate densities and concentrations. And L, to promote the development of senior citizen communities. The last variance is at the townhouses, and the ordinance requires a building separation between walls that have windows in them equal to 3 times the height of the highest wall or 75 feet, whichever is greater. The townhouse building walls are, the height of the highest wall is 22 foot 6. 3 times 22 foot 6 is 67 foot 6, so the 75 foot would be the requirement. Another way of looking at it is the height of the entire building, which is 28 foot 3 1/4 inches. And if you use that, then the buildings would have to be 84.8 feet apart. We're proposing 46 feet apart. And again, if the buildings did not have any windows at all, the ordinance permits them to be 15 feet apart. If one of them had a window and the other one did not, you could be 30 feet apart. So we're asking for the variance so that we can provide windows in both buildings. You can also notice from the drawing that the buildings aren't directly across from each other. They are kind of offset. And this is only between two lots, actually. Lot 11 and 12. On the left, between the 6-unit building and the 4-unit building.
He's pointing to it.
And they're pointing to it right now. So there's 46 feet. In there, the buildings comply with all of the other bulk requirements in the ordinance. And again, the positive criteria are that, again, under Purpose A, we're building, we're encouraging action to guide the appropriate use of development of land. We want the buildings to be not too far apart from each other. The buildings are safe, and we're also promoting appropriate population densities. And I don't really see any negative implications from separating the buildings by the 46 feet.
Thank you, Bill. Nothing further, Mr. Ive.
Okay, I'm going to open to the public. Is there anyone from the public that has any comments or questions regarding this application? Seeing no hands, I'll close the public portion. Okay, does the board have any comments or questions?
Could you explain to me why you couldn't actually just move that building out to meet the code?
The building separation? We're constrained on the top side. It goes off the top of the page. What you don't see in that picture is the adjoining property. The adjoining property, where it's offset 50 feet, there's a 50-foot buffer, 50-foot separation between our property line and that property. So we really can't move the building that direction. If we move the buildings, there you can see the adjoining property on that exhibit up on the screen. If we move the building, all the buildings the other direction, would be in a wetland. So the options for us would be to either lose a building and keep the windows or take the windows out. We'd like to leave the windows in. Without the variance, we would take the windows out.
I understand that. But the property that's behind there, isn't that owned by you?
Where the hand symbol is on the?
Yeah.
No, that's not us. We do not own that. That's a third party. That is not us.
Thank you.
And there is a residence on that property. Right. He was there first.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are there other affordable units located in Woodhaven, or does this building represent all of them?
The Woodhaven General Development Plan, which goes back to 1989, there are 75 affordable units at Woodhaven. The 24-unit building that we spoke of tonight, there are 2 24-unit buildings already existing in Phase 1, which if you put the exhibit back, There we go. On, what exhibit is that? In Phase 1, which is the aerial photograph part, the apartment complex there, two of those buildings are affordable buildings. So that's 24 times 3 is 72, and then there are 3 more additional affordable units that we initially thought to put in the affordable building. We were asked to put them as family housing, and we said yes. So there are 3 additional affordable units that will be in one of the market buildings.
Why in general is the trend to have dedicated affordable buildings as opposed to interspersing them?
Back when Section 2 was approved, the ordinance had a provision that said no more than 24 units in a building. And the affordable unit distribution has a state mandate. You have to have so many 1s, 2s, and 3-bedroom units. The market units are strictly what the market is requiring from you. So the mixed distribution is different between the affordables and the market unit buildings. And the size of the units, which is the other driver. The affordable units are a little bit smaller than the market units. So that's why they're in their own buildings.
Aren't there affordable units in that plaza?
In Texas Road Plaza, there are 15% affordable units, and there are 3 buildings there. So
Integrated
and
there.
they're integrated because there are 3 buildings. There's an 80, I forgot the exact numbers, but I'm going to say there's 3 70-unit buildings. So it's a matter of necessity that there wasn't one building, there wasn't 70 affordable units. There are 38 affordable units, and the smallest building is 70 units. So they're spread through the 3 buildings. But those are all 4-story building, elevator serviced 4-story buildings. It's a completely different architecture.
Those are age restricted.
Those are age restricted.
Okay. Do you want to read the?
The applicant is requesting amended preliminary and final site plan and subdivision approval with variances for the number of units in the age-restricted building, for the minimum setback to allow windows between the townhouses, waivers for parking stall size and sensitive area, wetlands, and what was the third one? I forgot that already. And the maximum length of the age-restricted building. 2 things for those are the variances and the waivers. They've agreed to comply with the planner's report in toto and have agreed to the majority of the items in the engineering environmental resolutions, except the ones that we called out during the hearing. And even on those, they've agreed to work with them to at least make some of that available. They've also agreed to the changes requested by Mr. Hart and have met with him to discuss those items. And in general, we will be requiring conditions regarding ownership and maintenance of stormwater facilities, conservation easements with legal descriptions for the spots to be dedicated if that hasn't been done yet. And in general, the updating to any landscaping that was noted in the plans. And you've provided all the requests for details that were requested in the memos as well.
And you're working on that turning lane
That was,
issue?
right, that was, I believe,
Yeah, we're going to have to work with the applicant to figure out an alignment that works to allow left turns into Crystal Avenue or Crystal Court.
We will resolve it to the consulting engineer's satisfaction.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Schmidt, is there a second?
I'll second.
And seconded by Mr. Marucci. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Pasquini?
No.
Mr. Lauer?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Chairman Cannon?
Yes. Could we also have an update as to where we are with this development in terms of the staging, what's left to be built, what? I mean, we don't need it now. Unless it's short.
I was excited. No.
Because it's just, I know
Our
there's
sections-
recreation area, I mean, there was land donated to the town, and I just want to know where all that is in the bigger scheme of things. Yeah, if you can just have it for the next meeting, so we just know. And also where we are in the phasing. Are they on track with the phasing here, with, you know, the commercial? I don't want you to get ahead with the housing before we get the ratables in here.
Madam Chairwoman, every Woodhaven application that comes in, I demand that they put the phasing schedule and the relationship of where they are on one of the pages of their drawings.
Okay. Don't want to lose track after all these years.
No, he does not.
Mr. Remsen did a good job on
He
it.
does a good job.
Mr. Renz and I will confer with the applicant.
Yeah, I just think it would be helpful to just know what's yet to be done and, okay, what's already in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need a rest? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, Old Bridge Investments LLC, major site plan preliminary and final with C variances. Block 21000, lot 20.12, Texas and Marlboro Road. Yes.
Good evening, Madam
Good evening.
Chairman. Nice to see you today, members of the board, Ms. Carey, and your professionals. Is everybody back, I guess, from the break? I guess we are. David Himmelman, representing the applicant, Opie Investments. And I just wanted to just give a brief overview of the project and be able to just describe for you our witnesses, and then we can proceed in with the testimony. I'll try and speak
You
loudly.
gotta talk loud.
Yes. As you are aware, so the applicant this evening is OB Investments LLC, and they have applied to the board for major preliminary and final site plan with C-bulk variance approval. And as you indicated, Madam Chairwoman, so for identification, the block is 21,000, lot 20.12 here in Old Bridge. And for the record, the property is also known as 1122 Marlboro Road. We are proposing a construction of a 2-story, we're calling it medical office, but you will hear testimony that we may not necessarily limit it for medical. And the building square foot is approximately 9,420 square feet, with associated parking, including 3 handicap spaces for 63 vehicles. Well, of course, we have designed stormwater management facilities. There's landscaping, proposed LED lighting, a waste management area, utilities, and other improvements. The site contains approximately 1.72 acres and is located in the Economic Development Opportunity Zone, otherwise known as EDO-3. We're here tonight because the proposed use is permitted in the EDO-3 zone. There are bulk relief variance sought pertaining to the minimum lot area requirements of 3 acres, because as you know, when the township rezoned the property, the minimum acreage requirement did change. The variance for the minimum lot area is pre-existing, as I indicated, and we'll hear testimony and the justification for the variance relief and any design waivers that may be sought. We have 3 witnesses tonight. One for the representative of the applicant, our civil engineer and architect. I just also wanted to clarify, Ms. Carey, that we have jurisdiction to hear this matter and the notice was proper and
Yes, we
et
did
cetera.
review the notice, and it was fine.
Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else further at this point, Madam Chairwoman, unless you have any questions or the board members, we can proceed with our first witness.
No, you can introduce her.
Okay, thank you. Alex? I'll have to have, ooh.
Get you sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Just state and spell your name for the record, please.
Alex Khmelnytsky.
Can't hear you.
You have to speak very loudly. You can speak into the mic, actually.
That's
that helps.
My name is Alex Khmelnytsky. It's ALEXKHMELNITSKY.
You can sit. Now we have to have sworn in, I guess.
You sworn.
Alex, for the record, would you identify your relationship to the applicant and confirm that you in fact own the property?
Yeah, I'm a president and own. I'm a president and own this property. Also, me and my wife we own OB Investment.
At OB Investments. And just for the record, where you live in Old Bridge, is that correct?
Yeah, I live in Old Bridge. I live right now just across of this property in Madison Crossing Development. Madison Crossing Development.
Across the road.
He lives across the street from the proposed development. Okay. And how long have you been a resident of Old Bridge?
I live in this property for 7 years, and before I live in Old Bridge for another 6 years in a different address.
Okay. Very nice. Okay. So, just if you could briefly tell the board, what is your intended use? Should the board approve this, what would be the intended use of the proposed building?
We're planning to use this building for medical office. And I already have two possible tenants for this office.
And those tenants being physician groups of some kind?
One is physician group and another one is dental office.
Okay. So, if in fact it turns out that you were not successful, should the board approve the application, and you were not successful in obtaining medical medical doctor tenants, would you consider general office?
Yes.
Okay. So you would ask the board to consider approving for general office as well as medical use, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it your intention to have one user for the building, or would you be open to multi-tenants?
Preferable
But
one tenant, but if not, it's going to be like multiple.
fine. Do you have anything else you want to add or discuss with the board about the application?
No.
Madam Chairman, I don't have anything further for Alex, and obviously open it up to questions from the
Yeah.
board.
Does anybody from the board have any questions?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, you're dismissed.
Thank you.
Next is Mr. Lieber, who's our civil engineer, Mark Lieber, and he will have to be sworn in and qualified.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
Yes,
you?
I do.
And spell your name for the record, please.
It's Mark with a C. Last name is Lieber, L-E-B, like Brian, E-R.
Mr. Lieber, if you would just give a brief summary of your education and professional background, and I know you've testified before this board, but so we can have you qualified as an expert both in civil engineering and in planning, for the record. Thank you.
Okay, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering. It's from Drexel University. I also have a graduate degree from Rutgers Graduate School of Management, and licensed in New Jersey as a professional engineer. Unfortunately, not a meteorologist. professional planning license, and a certified municipal engineering certificate. Testified before both planning and zoning boards in Old Bridge and elsewhere.
We accept your.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Lieber, thank you. So you, I understand, have prepared the site plan in connection with this application. Is that correct?
I have.
Okay, and you've also, I think, before you get into your testimony, I know you have brought with you several exhibits.
Yes.
And so for housekeeping, why don't we first identify what you've brought, and then we can begin your testimony. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you.
So A1, I presume, the photos, or you want to mark? Fine.
Okay, so A1 will be a color rendering. It's sheet 3 of the set of plans that was submitted with the addition of the proposed landscaping added.
Okay.
The next exhibit is a series of 3 pages of color photographs. The first being an aerial photo which was obtained from Google Earth. And the next 2 pages were photos that I had taken this weekend at the property.
As a set, right?
Okay, I'm going to start with A1, which is the color rendering. I'm just going to describe the characteristics of the property as well as what's proposed. So this is block 21,000, lot 20.12. The street address here is 1122 Marlborough Road. It's 1.72 acres, and it's in the EDO 3 zone district. It is located at the northeast corner of Marlborough Road and Texas Road, Marlborough Road being a local street and Texas Road is a county road. The frontage is approximately 115 feet along Texas Road, which is on the bottom of the sheet. And along Marlborough Road, there's approximately 370 feet. Now, there is an existing driveway on the property. It's located at the extreme northern portion, and it's just about 20 feet south of the northerly property border. To the north of this property, there's a residential dwelling, and they also have a driveway right off of Marlborough Road. Across the street from the property is a little unusual. There's East Greystone Road, comes to a fork with Marlborough Road. The configuration here is that traffic on East Greystone has the right-of-way, and traffic traveling south on Marlborough Road presently has a stop sign. The intersection at the corner of Marlborough and Texas is signalized, and there's presently one restriction which prohibits a right turn on red for cars traveling west on Texas Road to turn north on Marlborough Road. Presently, there's a sign that prohibits a right turn on red. There are some improvements taking place along the intersection, which I'm going to describe in a few minutes. Other than that, as far as land topography, this property presently drains. I would say to the southeast corner is the low area of the property, and it's primarily a wooded property. If you look at the photos, starting with the aerial, in the center you'll see a little red pin indicating 1122 Marlborough Road, and the wooded area to the right is the location of this property. You'll see just to the north of that, the fork where East Greystone and Marlborough Road converge. You'll notice Texas Road bisects the photo directly in the center. And for the most part, it's surrounded by woods, mixed uses. There's some residences to the north, also to the east. And to the southeast is, I believe, the back of Madison Crossing. If you go to the second page, and these are the photos that I took this weekend. You'll notice there's construction ongoing along Marlborough Road. The top photo, let me just make sure everyone's looking at the same page. It shows woods on the left. Is that the page you have? Okay. So that's looking south along Marlborough Road. The site in question here is on the left where the trees are. You'll see the traffic signal in the distance. And the county just finished installing new curbs and depressed curb ramps for access and some sidewalks along the radiuses of that intersection. The light is not functional presently, but it is in fact installed, and it looks like they'll be finishing those improvements in the next few weeks. The bottom photo is looking looking north, and you'll see in the distance the fork where East Greystone Road is on your left, and Marlborough Road continues around the bend to the right. If you go to the next sheet, this is actually standing across the street from the property. I'm standing on Marlborough Road, and I'm looking at the intersection. You'll notice in the foreground there's a brand-new sidewalk, some new curb, and this work was just completed. There's an old, you could see the old curb line in the center of the photo. That's to be removed. And if you were to walk around the corner, there's some new drainage there as well, and the property is on the left in this photo. The bottom photo is looking up Marlborough Road from the corner near the signal, and the site that we're here to discuss is on the right where the woods are. Any questions at this point? Okay, so I'm going to go back to A1, the color rendering, just to talk about what's proposed. We have situated on the property and outlined in red is a 2-story building. The footprint is 4,710 square feet for a gross square footage of 9,420. The setback of this building is approximately 170 feet from Texas Road and just about 54 feet from Marlborough Road. We have a two-way access aisle shown. It's 24 feet wide, which is off of Marlborough Road. The reason we had selected this location for the driveway is we wanted to maintain a safe separation distance to the intersection here. And I always try and line up entrances with main drive aisles, so it was an easier approach to enter the site and to continue down one of the main aisles into the property. I also didn't want to have the driveway too close to the north edge of the property because this is like a kind of unusual intersection here, the way the fork is, and I wanted to maintain some safe distance from that.
What is the distance? 'Cause I drive that every day, right near, and that little intersection is a nightmare.
Okay, so I did bring a scale with me. Let me just get a measurement. 30. It's about 280 feet from the fork. Now, presently when you go out there, there is a sight distance issue if you were to stand at the center of our property and look north. The reason is because this whole property is vegetated and a lot of the frontage is overgrown. However, that's going to be corrected because all the vegetation that's within the right-of-way is going to be removed, and you'll be able to see clearly to the north. And sight distance to the south is pretty good because it's a straight shot down Marlborough Road. As far as buffering on the property, this plan shows the proposed trees and shrubs that are on sheet 5 of the set that was submitted. So we were able to maintain the 50-foot required landscape buffer to the north, which is adjacent to lot both 20.14 and 20.15, which are residential uses. To the south of the property along Texas Road, we similarly have a buffer, but within that buffer is our stormwater management facility. As I stated earlier, the property drains more or less to the southeast. So when we design drainage, we more or less put it at the low point of the property. So the runoff would be collected from the parking lot, the building roof area. It would be piped into a shallow detention basin. There is a permeability in that basin which allows that water to be infiltrated into the soil. Should there be a storm, a large storm, we use 100-year, for example, which has a 2% chance of occurring, or 1% chance of occurring in a given year. That would overflow through a flow control structure out to the east and into, there's a wetland area on lot 20.11, that water would run off to the east, similar to the way it does right now. We're proposing that the building be served by both public water and public sewer, which are both available on Marlborough Road. We provided a very detailed landscape plan as sheet 5. We also provided sheet 6, lighting plan with LED light fixtures, which would provide lighting throughout the parking areas and the pedestrian and, areas as well. We have a trash enclosure proposed, which is located on the eastern end of the site to accommodate refuse storage. And there is a sign proposed. On this plan, it's shown to the right of our entrance drive. It's a 48 square foot sign. There was a detail for that sign on, I believe, sheet 10. The primary reason the sign is proposed is to show in very large letters the street address of this property and as well as the tenants or tenant that are occupying the building. We received a couple of review letters from the township. The first letter is from the Office of Community Development dated July 31st, 2018. And I'm just going to address some of the comments. So parts A, B, C, and D are more or less background about the project, including its location and the description of what's proposed. Letter E, zoning. Again, we're in the EDO3 zone. Part F discusses the master plan. And then Part G is where we get into the bulk requirements. So there is an existing nonconformity here. The lot is 1.72 acres. The EDO3 zone requires 3 acres. There's a little history about this. The property was previously zoned R120. And by rezoning the property EDO3, it more or less created this existing nonconformity, which I don't feel is affected by what's proposed, as we're still complying with our maximum floor area ratio, landscape ratio, parking spaces, et cetera. The remaining items in the zone, including lot width, front yards, side yards, rear yards, building height, floor area ratio, landscape ratio, are indicated as conforming. The plan proposes 63 parking spaces, which we've been able to comply with the size building proposed as follows. The gross square footage is 9,420, and as a medical office, we're required to provide 1 space per 150 square feet, which yields 63 spaces, which is how many we have on the plan on the board. Of the 63 spaces, we're required to have 3 handicapped accessible spaces, which we have provided at the front of the building. Aisle widths, parking stall lengths, parking stall widths are indicated as conforming, which brings us over to Part H. So there is no use variance required. The proposed use is a permitted use in the EDO3 zone. There are 2 bulk variances identified in Table 2. The first one, lot area, was the existing nonconformity we just discussed. And then there's a second comment here that a buffer along Texas roads required to be 50 feet, and it's non-conforming. On the plan here, I just want to point out that the distance from the right-of-way line along Texas Road to our parking lot is approximately 100 feet, but because we have a stormwater basin within that 100 feet, I don't think it would technically meet the requirements as a buffer. So we would need a variance for that. I think it's a bit of a technical variance. If you include the actual area between our parking lot and the curb line, it's approximately 130 feet, where a 50-foot buffer is required. So I think that there are some comments later on in the letter that recommend additional planning along Texas Road to more or less screen the stormwater area We had actually spoken with the county this morning, and they would have no objection to that. But we would need the variance. I don't see this as being a detriment in any way to somebody either traveling past the property or from a zoning perspective. I don't even think it would be perceptible. That's my opinion. So we would ask for that relief from the 50 feet. Before I get into part I just wanted to see if there were any questions so far. All right. Part I is the planning section. Letter A, 1A, the applicant should testify that the proposed building will be used for medical office use only. If we can't find a medical use tenant, we would ask that the board permit the applicant to have any permitted general office use that's allowed in the zone to occupy. I don't think that would create any sort of a parking problem because the parking requirement for a general office is a little less than a medical office. Here we're required as medical 1 per 150 square feet. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that a general office is 1 per 200 square feet. So in the event that, for example, a dentist occupies the building, in 10 years the dentist moves out, but an accountant, if that's permitted, wants to occupy, I think that the only consequence of that is that you might have some extra parking in the lot. But we would ask for some flexibility that it's not strictly limited to only medical practices, and that would be available. It would be available to have any permitted office use in this zone occupy that space. On 1B, the question was single tenant or multi-tenant. It's certainly simpler if it were a single tenant, but we don't really know. 9,420 square feet might be a little large for one tenant, so we would request that the building could be multi-tenanted. For 1C, there was a suggestion that we provide some walking paths and site furniture and tables and benches. What I would like to add to the plan would be some furniture such as a bike rack, perhaps some benches, tables for employees, something like that. I think that would be fine. Okay, I'm going on to page 5, number 2, the refuse area. Right now, I'm just going to go back to this drawing, A1. We have the refuse area on the east side. It is buffered by some plantings on 3 sides. There was a comment that it might be visible from Texas Road. If the board desires, we could relocate that trash enclosure to the northern side of the lot. What that would wind up doing is one parking space from the north would go to the south, and the trash area would be relocated to the north. I would leave that up to the board if they wanted that to be changed. But it is technically feasible. Do I have to ask now? Do we have to have that resolved now? Okay. All right. Item 3 was about the lighting. The lights were proposed at 20 feet. I understand that we're only permitted 18 feet, and we could revise that to comply. All right. On the freestanding sign, the first comment is it's located very close to the driveway, and we should consider moving it away further. I'm actually going to address that comment in a few minutes with an additional exhibit, but I wanted to discuss the size of the sign. The ordinance allows 50 square feet. We were proposing 6 by 8, which is 48 square feet. However, it states in the letter that a smaller sign would be equally effective in identifying and locating the use. We prefer a 48 square foot sign, and I just want to go to page, I believe it's 10 of the set. Hold on one second. Okay, we're going to go to sheet 5 up on the screen. Okay, in the bottom left corner, you'll see a little detail of the sign. Yeah, maybe we could zoom in a little. All right, so this is a 6x8 sign. As you can see, the street address is pretty prominent, which I think is important. We've all driven down to people's offices and you just can't find an address anywhere. So, you know, having the address large and visible, I think is a good idea. And then we also have space for example, on this sign, 2 tenants. My opinion, 6x8 sign driving down the road is not a very big sign when you're outside and you're in your car driving by. So I know that there's a recommendation here to reduce the size of the sign, but I strongly feel that this size sign is appropriate for this location. Sidewalk, number 5. We spoke with the county today. They presently have this application scheduled for their meeting next week, and they're going to request sidewalk along Texas Road. So we're going to have to add that to the plan. As far as sidewalk along Marlborough Road, I think what would make sense is if we connect it to the corner where the county just installed their new depressed curb ramp, we would bring the sidewalk north to our driveway and then turn the sidewalk into our site. Once you pass our site and go north, there's really nowhere to go. There's no sidewalk up in that area along Marlborough Road. But again, I'll leave it up to the board to decide if they want the sidewalk to go north and into our property, or if they prefer to have sidewalk along the entire frontage. Okay. All right, item 6, we have an architect tonight. I'm going to leave that to him, as that's usually more exciting than engineering. Item 7, again, this is based on the buffer requirement along Texas Road. We did speak with the county, and we would be available to install some supplemental landscaping there, which I think would address the fact that we do need a variance from that 50-foot wide buffer, being that we have our stormwater management area in that area. Item 8 is a parking statement. Item 9 is requiring a tree removal permit. That's also a statement. Item 10A, there's a landscape strip requirement, at least 5 feet in width required. Right now, we only have 2 feet in width. So we would need a relief from that, and I'll explain where that is. Because the property falls off from the front along Marlborough Road to the east, to the rear, we have to construct a retaining wall, which starts probably about 2/3 in from Marlborough Road on the north side and wraps around and heads south along the back property line. So that wall is within that 5-foot landscape buffer, and we are proposing landscaping above that wall. But based upon the way the letter is, it seems that we can't actually have the wall in the 5-foot buffer. If you measure exactly the distance from the property line to the parking lot, that happens to be 8 feet. So the issue becomes, is the wall counted as landscape buffer or not? If it's not, then we only have 2 feet between the wall and the lot line, and then we have plants behind the wall to the parking. If the wall can be in the buffer, then we have 8 feet. But, you know, we would need relief because we don't have a 5-foot strip with no wall, so to say. And again, I don't really think it's a detriment. If you go back to the aerial map and you look to the east of our property, it's thousands of feet of woods. I don't really think that today it is, but I mean, if you look at some of the mapping from the state, which I know is not always exact. For the most part, a lot of this wooded area is wetlands. Oh, the town owns that? Okay, I wasn't aware. Lot 611? 611. 21,000. I'll have to check the list, but if so. Where was I? Okay, 10B indicates that the landscaping along the eastern property line contains fewer shade trees, and we should consider planting additional shade trees. The issue as to why we didn't plant more shade trees is because of that retaining wall. I don't really have enough width to provide like something with a large root ball, so we were very selective in what we were planting there, and most of it's comprised of shrubs. I would prefer not to add additional shade trees above the wall. The wall behind it has, it's something called geogrid, and that's a layer of a manufactured fabric that keeps the wall from overturning. In order to plant something with a large root ball, you'd have to puncture the geogrid. I'd rather not do that, whereas shrubs have a very shallow root system, and it wouldn't be an impact to the wall. It's a different block, though. What's that on there? So for B, I would ask that we would not put trees in that lot line, but we could certainly fit trees elsewhere, for example, on the southern side of the property. Item C, the height of the shrubs we're proposing are less than the minimum height for a hedge, so we would comply and increase the height of those shrubs. Item D is about planting on Texas Road, and we did speak with the county, and we can comply with that. Item 11, regarding a loading area. We don't have a designated loading area on the property. For the most part, the types of deliveries would probably be Amazon or UPS. One of the features of the site is we do have a drive aisle in the front of the building that has no parking adjacent to it. So that could be used for, you know, a temporary stop. A truck could park there. He could run into the front, drop off whatever it is, and then he could leave. Medical office usually has pickup at the end of the day of either medical waste, and that could be done after hours. Last item is 12 about lighting, and we would comply with the pole height. 18 foot is the maximum allowed. Okay.
Just also for the record, so continuing in the memorandum that you were just referring to, I know we're going into engineering comments and recommendations, but I know you've talked about some of the issues relating to the driveway adjustment and some of the improvements on Marlboro and Texas, but are there any comments in the report dealing with grading, utility, drainage, and lighting? You touched on details of miscellaneous that we did not comply with.
No, if we go into Part J1 site plan, the main issue in the balance of the report is actually 1A, which I brought another exhibit, and I'm going to explain that in a second. But the remaining comments, 1B through J, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, and 6, we can comply. I do want to point out, just to save a little time, item 4A was a comment about wetlands. We had an environmental firm, Du Bois Environmental, investigate the property. He did prepare a report, and we would be happy to submit that report to the board for their review. And the report clears the site of wetlands and wetland buffers as well. I know that was a concern. So that brings me back to J.1.A, which is regarding the county improvements that are currently being constructed along Marlboro Road and Texas Road. I'm going to hand out another exhibit. Okay. Sure. All right. This is a layout plan prepared by my office. And what we had done is we overlaid onto our plan the proposed improvements currently being done by the county, which includes road widening, sidewalk construction, and striping. And we had spoken with both your professionals as well as Middlesex County, because there was a comment that the striping that's proposed along Marlborough Road is going to create a dedicated left turn lane for cars wanting to travel east on Texas Road. And I'll wait till this is passed out. Okay, so if you look at the striping on Marlborough Road, you'll see right at the intersection there's a dedicated left turn lane, and then on the right there's a through lane / right turn combined for cars that want to travel west onto Texas Road. Our entrance, which is shown on the coloring A1, was located in such a location that it was across the street from that dedicated left turn lane on Marlborough Road. This current plan depicts that entrance shifted to the north by about 80 feet. And by doing so, we've been able to eliminate the conflict with cars that are making the left onto Texas Road. But it also gets us a little better sight distance for cars exiting at this location, looking up Marlborough Road and also along Greystone Road. We had spoken with the board's professionals, and I think we have a consensus that this is a much better location for the driveway for this property, and it eliminates the conflict with what's really going on out there today as far as the improvements. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to weigh in on that, or you want to wait till the end, or?
We did have a call with the applicant earlier today. We did have a call with the, wow, this is pretty powerful, with the applicant earlier today to discuss this particular issue. And based off of the sight lines out there, we feel this is a better location for the driveway to get sight distance down Marlborough Road, and also given the left turn lane that's to be constructed out there, this would be again not conflict with that left turn lane as well. So that's pretty much we agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you still going through the engineer report?
No, I mean, if okay, that would pretty much take me to the end of the engineering report. We have other reports, namely from Mr. Lavallo, Shade Tree Commission. We have a report from Environmental Resolutions regarding traffic. And then there's also a report from Mr. Hart, Fire Marshal. So I can talk about the Shade Tree Commission report. One of the things that I think would maybe change some of the comments in his report is he notes that he didn't receive a copy of the landscape plan on page 5. So he had comments here. Without the benefit of the landscape plan, I'm not sure if he was aware of how many trees and where we were replacing the trees. We had done a calculation on this project, which was provided on page 12, and assuming my numbers are correct, we estimated that we were deficient by a few trees, which would result in a tree replacement fee of about $8,800. However, after reviewing Mr. Lavallo's report, I find there are some trees in the northern part of the property that could be saved that are outside the grading limits disturbance, which would perhaps reduce that number. And as well, if we could provide some additional plantings along Texas Road, I think we could reduce that number as well. So at this point, and I just got the memo, I feel comfortable and I would be happy to meet with Mr. Lavallo to discuss his comments, but I feel comfortable that we can address the tree removal on the site in such a manner that would either not require a contribution, or if there was a contribution left over at the end, that the applicant would be more than happy to make that contribution.
Hart's memo of July 27th.
Sure. Okay, so in the fire marshal's report, the first comment is about a hydrant. Presently, there is a hydrant located directly across the street from the property, but as he indicates, to use that hydrant would require closing the road. So we don't object to extending a line to our property with a new hydrant, provided that the hydrant would be a public hydrant and not a private hydrant. I did reach out to Nancy at the OBMUA, and she indicated that should the board approve the application, we should file water and sewer, and we'd be able to discuss the hydrant during the review process for water and sewer. But I believe in theory, we are not opposed to providing a hydrant, but it's just preferable that it become a public township hydrant and not a private hydrant. It could be in the right of way.
If you put it in the right of way, we have no objection. If it's on your private property, then we wouldn't take jurisdiction.
Okay. Okay, the next comment was regarding fire sprinklers. It's my understanding that the building is not sprinklered. Is that correct? Okay. We are providing a Knox box regardless. There is a note on sheet 3 that there will be a Knox box provided at the entrance for fire department access. The letter indicates that the fire lanes and striping throughout the site are satisfactory. Of course, we would need to update that striping and those fire lanes to reflect the new location of the entrance. For the comment regarding the breakdown of the floor areas and how many tenants, unfortunately, I don't know how many tenants there will be, but I believe we have preliminary architectural floor plans showing how the building could be laid out as an office building. It will have central fire alarm, and that was the last remaining comment.
Yeah, the only concern I have is the MUA. If you can't put this hydrant in the right of way, and they tell you they're not going to take it over, you're not going to put it in, I still have a problem. I cannot put the hose across Marlborough Road, regardless that you don't want it to be a public hydrant or private. That's not my problem. My problem is closing Marlborough Road. If there's even a car fire, I would have to close that road, and I'm not going to do that.
So, Mr. Hart, if the MUA permitted us to put it in the right of way, you're okay with that?
Where would that land, Nicole?
Be along Marlborough Road, but on the side of the street where the building is. So in the vicinity of the access driveway, let's say.
Okay, that would be fine then. Yes.
I mean, obviously, we would show the location for you to approve.
Right, no, I mean, if you put it straight across towards the entrance, then I'm fine with that, yes.
And if the MUA doesn't, to Nicole's point, if the MUA does not permit the fire hydrant to be within the right of way, it would have to be on the applicant's property, and that's a private hydrant.
Okay.
So we would still have to show you the location.
Yes, right, okay, very good. Thank you.
All right.
What's that?
Is there another letter?
I think so. I think it's make a representation that we comply with this.
Okay, that's,
And then the memo as well. So
Yeah, can
generally,
we-
Mr. Lieber, it's my understanding from your testimony that in terms of Mr. Hart's memo, we're pretty much in agreement. We'll comply, subject to the review by the OBMUA of the location of the hydrant, correct?
yes, 100%.
Subject to Mr. Hart's approval of that location.
Yes.
We also have environmental resolutions memo on traffic, also dated July 31st. Can you, I mean, you've obviously discussed several of the points in this memo, but if you could just go through that, and we could discuss any areas that you need to bring out.
Okay, so on page 2, there's a general comments, item 1, trip generation. We had used the 9th edition of the trip generation manual. I believe they're up to the 10th edition now. But the numbers are similar for this type of use.